Welcome back, Savages, and tonight we're talking the devil's footprints.
And flies.
You're a jackass.
It dive bombed my head as you were talking.
So, tonight we are talking about the devil's footprints, and it's not what you think. So
no? Maybe.
For the most part. So the devil's footprints was a phenomena that occurred during February 1855 around the Exe estuary in East and South Devon, England. That took forever to say. After a heavy snowfall, trails of hoof-like marks appeared overnight in the snow, covering a total distance of 40 to 100 miles or 60 to 160 kilometers. The footprints were so called because some persons suggested that they were the tracks of Satan and made comparisons to a cloven hoof. Many theories have been made to explain the incident, and some aspects of its veracity have also been questioned. The size and spacing of the hoof is what people have led people to believe that it's the devil walking.
Okay.
It has been reported in more than 30 locations across Devon and a couple in Dorset. It was estimated that the total distance of the tracks amounted to between 40 and 100 miles, which this is houses, rivers, haystacks, and other obstacles are traveled straight over. And
or through.
Yes.
The one said that there were like walls of buildings that it went through.
Yeah, so it says footprints appeared on tops of snow-covered roofs and high walls which lay in the footprints path, as well as leading up to and exiting drain pipes as small as 4 inches in diameter. In May 26, 1855, issues of Bell's Life in Sydney published in its miscellaneous extracts column, a weekly dispatch. We all know that a lot of people like to talk about how the big black goat
Yes. The
represents Satan.
human body, goat head, goat hooves.
Yes. That's Baphomet, by the way.
Yeah.
For those who don't know that.
Well, yeah. But everybody just says it's Satan.
Exactly.
Or the devil.
It is not, though. It's a completely different entity. But for all of this to have happened, it can't be like a normal animal.
How is it going to be big enough to climb, jump, whatever, and leave big enough space in between the steps and still fit through a drain pipe?
That's only 4 inches.
Yeah.
Granted, it can't even really be like a small goat either, because if you've ever seen a little goat walk, their feet are like super close together. They're so cute. But even the big ones, even their steps are close together. The way that people have depicted these, it's as if it is human spaced apart as they walk.
Like 2 footsteps instead of 4.
Yes, but it's hooves.
I can't come up with an explanation for it.
It says the superstitious goes as far to believe that they were the marks of Satan himself, and that great excitement has been produced among all classes may be judged from the fact that the subject has been decanted on from the pulpit. It appears on Thursday, late night. There was a very heavy snowfall in the neighborhood of Exeter in the south of Devon. On the following morning, the inhabitants of the above towns were surprised at discovering the footprints of some strange and mysterious animal endowed with the power of ubiquity, there we go, as the footprints were seen in all kinds of accountable places on the tops of houses, narrow walls, and gardens, courtyard enclosed by high walls, palings, and as well as open fields. The impressions of the foot closely resembled that of a donkey's shoe and measured from 1.5 inches to, in some instances, 2.5 inches across. Here and there, it appeared as if cloven, but in the generality of the steps, the shoe was continuous, and from the snow in the center remaining merely showing the outer crust of the foot, it must have been concave. So basically what they're saying is the way that we walk heel to toe, is how the indentations were being left behind. was that somebody was walking heel to toe.
Yeah.
Like a human.
Yeah.
But not a human.
But they don't have a heel.
It says there's little direct evidence of the phenomenon. The only documents were found after the publication during 1950 of an article on the transactions of the Devonshire Association asking for further information about the event. This resulted in the discovery of a collection of papers belonging to Henry Thomas Ellicombe, the vicar of Slist St. George during the 1850s. These papers included letters addressed to the vicar from his friends, among them the Reverend G.M. Musgrove, the vicar of Withcombe, Raleigh, the draft of a letter to the Illustrated London News marked not for publication, and several apparent tracings of the footprints. Mike Dash collated the available primary and secondary source material into a paper entitled The Devil's Hoof Marks, Source Material on the Great Devon Mystery of 1855, which was published in the 14 studios during 1994.
I want to know what all these people were doing to have Satan out roaming around.
There's a few things. Many explanations have been made for the incident. Some investigators are skeptical that the tracks really extended for more than 100 miles, arguing that no one would have been able to follow their entire course in a single day. Another reason for skepticism, as Joe Nickel indicates, is that the eyewitness descriptions of the footprints varied from person to person. So basically, it's like telephone.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw, and especially back in that time frame,
right?
Anything that looked weird was unholy.
And I would have to guess that somebody didn't actually try to follow it. It's just somebody over here says, "Hey, I saw this." Somebody down here says, "Hey, I saw this." They're just assuming it's from here to here.
And we all know that with snow on the ground, especially if it's windy for whatever reason, it's dark outside and back in that olden times, they didn't have outside streetlights all the time. Snow drifts, we know that. How many times have we all played in the snow, turned around, and half of our footprints are gone already?
Yeah.
So who's to say it walked all that way and didn't? And as far as like footprints being on roofs and things, houses back then were not very tall.
They weren't exactly the most sturdy either.
So you have something walking along your roof.
Yeah.
You don't hear it, but those houses back then didn't have any kind of insulation, really.
Yeah.
But you only found prints on the roof. So who's to say it wasn't a goat hopping around? Because like he said, back then the houses weren't that tall. And goats know how to freaking climb.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I watched a goat climb onto the top of a truck, and then he got scared and couldn't get down. His mom had to push him. That was when we went to Hocking Hills a couple weekends ago.
So I have one of the devil's footprints, but this isn't there. This one is a little bit different.
Okay.
So there was some construction workers. They were building a road. And this was in Manchester, Maine.
Okay.
And one of the construction workers came upon a rock that they could not move. All of them, they couldn't figure out how to get this rock to move.
If they pull the sword from it, do they become king for a day?
Maybe. So one of the construction workers climbed up onto the rock
and pulled the sword. I know how the story goes.
And swore that he would sell his soul to the devil if the rock could be moved.
Okay, first of all.
That was your first mistake.
Right.
The next day, the rock was moved. The construction worker disappeared.
Well, of course he did.
All that was left were where the rock got moved to, and there were some strange indentations in the rock.
The alphabet said, "You're my new homie. Let's go."
The rock is now part of the cemetery wall.
Oh, of course it is.
And there is a fossilized footprint of what looks like the devil's footprint, as well as one that is a human footprint. So you have the cloven hoof and then a set of human footprints merged together.
That's called a pirate with a peg leg.
No, it's actually...
He just misstepped.
It could be. It could be. Then people have elaborated on this story over the years, and some people have said that it was made by Satan chasing somebody across the rock. But there's actually, like, I'm looking at it, and it is literally like steps of human cloven. People through the years have now come along and they've spray painted in the
Indentations.
Yes. And so they make them stand out more so you can
Yeah.
like really see, and like you can even see the grooves from the human shoe. It's cool. And of course they used red.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Because why not bring the Satan lore to life?
That's neat.
Others have speculated that it was a balloon. So, author Jeffrey Household, of course, suggested that an experimental balloon released by mistake from Devonport dockyard had left the mysterious tracks by trailing 2 shackles at the end of its mooring ropes. His source was a local man, Major Carter, whose grandfather had worked at Devonport at the time. Carter claimed that the incident had been hushed up because the balloon also wrecked a number of conservatories, greenhouses, and windows before finally descending to Earth in Honiton. I know in that time they did use like weird stuff to hold those things down, but I see that more as being like a dragging than.
If the wind's blowing, it would bounce with the wind, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
it would have to be like a continual
Thing.
gusts of wind to keep it bouncing. Otherwise it would bounce, drag.
Right. Others said it was hopping mice. Mike Dash suggested that at least some of the footprints, including some of those found on rooftops, could have been made by hopping rodents such as wood mice. The print left behind after a mouse leaps resembles that of a cloven hoofed animal due to the motions of its limbs when it jumps. Dash stated that the theory that the Devon prints were made by rodents was originally proposed as long ago as March 1855 in the Illustrated London News in the paper's March 10th issue. Thomas Fox, a brewer and brick maker of Ballingdon, one of those two, submitted illustrations of rodent tracks in varying snow depths as well as diagram of how rodents' hind and forelimbs create the hoof shape. So, I don't know. I can't really rotate that. But you can see, I don't see hooves in that.
I don't either.
And they're not like side by side. They're just like.
It's all in a straight line.
Yeah, it's all.
That's not like footsteps would be.
No, yeah. Now, granted, may they have seen something like that? Yeah. But those are like very singular.
Yeah, a footstep. Nobody's going to walk in a perfect.
Right. Somebody said it could be a kangaroo. We know that kangaroos don't have hooves.
No kangaroos I've ever seen do.
No,
but
and their feet are like friggin' ginormous. Somebody said it could have been a badger. Pretty sure they don't have hooves either.
No.
I think they have paws.
Yes.
Or similar to paws.
Similar, yeah.
Yeah. Reports of similar anomalous obstacle unheeded. Why are there so many freaking words? Unheeded footprints exist from other parts of the world, although none is of such a scale. The example was reported 15 years earlier in the Times. So that was 1840. That was in Scotland, in Glenlyn and Glenaquy. And then you have Poland in March of 1855. And then you have Kerguelen, Scotland, again, possibility of an April Fool's hoax in 2023.
That I could see.
Yes.
These people nowadays are jerks, but...
In the Reddit post that I had found to go along with everything, it says that they appeared to have been scorched into the snow, as if the snow had been branded by a hot iron. What made the phenomena even more unusual was the route that the tracks followed. The tracks went over 12-foot-high walls, which we've talked about. The religious folks speculated that the tracks were caused by the devil himself, hence the name. On the other hand, more rational theories encompassed everything from hoaxes, the distorted tracks of mice, birds, rabbit, badgers, ponies, horses, and even escaped kangaroos.
I like the kangaroo one. That's good.
Who looks at a kangaroo and is, oh, it's got hooves? No. And if anybody has ever seen a kangaroo hop, there's no way around that. It's like a flat...
Yeah. No, they have... The best thing I could think of to describe it would be like the fins that people wear to swim. The shoe fins that...
On March 5th, 2009, so we're getting up there, there was a similar phenomenon that was reported in the same location. A resident named Jill Wade of Woolsey, North Devon, claimed to have discovered an unusual line of hoof-like tracks imprinted in the freshly fallen snow in her backyard. Wade reported that the tracks were approximately 5 inches long with a stride between 11 to 17 inches. The tracks stretched for about 60 to 70 feet across the garden in an arch-like shape. Huh. The tracks started at her window.
Now that's creepy.
Followed to the other side of her yard and then disappeared. The tracks were closely examined by Graham Inglis, a biologist with the Center for Fortean Zoology. Inglis, who addressed the resemblance of the devil's footprints of 1855, could not positively identify the animal that made them. Inglis was also quick to denounce any conclusion of paranormal activity, saying, "This is certainly a first for me. The footprints are peculiar, but they are not the devil's. I don't believe the horned one has been in Woolsey. Personally, I think it belongs to a rabbit or hare, but quite an academic punch-up has started over it." I think to dismiss it, that it isn't paranormal, it's not wrong, but it's also not, because there are lots of things that you can't explain. But you got creepy peeping Tom over here checking out her window, and then it just disappears. That could be an animal who was trying to get inside, got spooked, and took off running. But the location and everything, the winter time, I think it's all connected to something, because we know that there's a winter solstice.
And the fact that most of these happened in the winter time, granted, it could have happened any time of the year, but it's going to be easier to be seen in the winter. So potentially this could have been going on all year round and they just didn't know it. But since all we have to go on right now is winter time, would lead me to it could be something paranormal, because there could be something triggering these in the wintertime.
Right. 15 years before that, the tracks appeared in, this is going to be wrong, Kerguelen Islands of the southern Indian Ocean. The frozen land is treeless and wholly surrounded by rough waters. The island is one of the most isolated locations in the world, as they are located more than 2,051 miles away from the Madagascar island, the nearest trace of civilization. The only plant life to be found on the island are some lynches, mosses, and grasses. The only animal life that inhabits the island are a few species of seals, insects, seabirds, and penguins, feral rabbits, cats, and some sheep that have been introduced to the island by passing ships. Sheeps have hooves. I know sheeps is not the right word. Don't correct me on that. I like to say sheeps. Anyway, Jeremy Clarkson says sheeps, and he's a wonderful man. So, sheeps have hooves. Why could it not be the sheeps that caused the hooves?
Could be.
Captain Sir James Ross was on these shores as part of an expedition to catalog the plant and animal life on the island. At the time, there were no introduced animals like there is today. In fact, the only animal life Ross would discover were insects, seabirds, and seals along the coast. While exploring the snow-swept land for any signs of life, there's the freshly fallen snow. Again, freshly fallen snow.
Yeah. Was
a line of horse-shaped, hoof-like tracks. Since there's a lack of animals that inhabit the island, these tracks made the discovery most unusual. It was speculated that a horse, pony, or donkey must have left these tracks imprinted in the snow from a previous expedition, or a horse had made its way there after surviving a shipwreck. However, considering that a horse would not have survived such Arctic conditions on its own, then it must have arrived there fairly recently, especially considering that there had been no signs of shipwreck in the vicinity. However, members of the expedition noted that even these possibilities seemed improbable.
Yeah.
Because it's not like today where you've got a motor and everything and you can just pull up, check it out, and head off.
Right.
That's a whole, day to get your ship anchored, decommissioned.
Not to mention how long you're at sea before you even hit there.
And then, how do you get on the island?
Right.
It says that it's just an island. So, did you climb on your own? Did you use horses? And it wouldn't have just been one horse.
Right.
It would have been horses.
And again, if it was left there or survived
they would have found the horse at some point.
There would have been a body somewhere because it obviously wouldn't survive without shelter and food.
And it says it's a treeless island, so you would have seen some kind of pile up, especially if it was freshly fallen hooves or freshly fallen snow with the hooves.
So I have another one. This one is from Rhode Island. This one they don't go into a lot of depth, but it's still neat. It's near Devil's Foot Road.
Of course.
Which is ironic, which came first, the footprint or the road. But there's been stories about footprints of the devil somewhere in Rhode Island. It's by Devil's Foot Road. And there's a couple of different legends surrounding how it potentially got there.
Yeah.
They're on a rocky ledge above the railroad line running into Quonset. The date that everybody agrees on is around 1850, when Christians were still busy trying to convert the indigenous Americans in the region.
Yeah.
It is said that an indigenous woman, as far as this, whoever's writing the story can tell, her tribal affiliation was never mentioned, murdered a white man nearby. The evil spirit who came to take her away was eventually referred to as Satan, and when he stomped his foot in anger, it left the marks, and it's in granite. It's like, in the picture, it looks like it's a good this far deep in the granite. There's also other footprints like this in several other Rhode Island locations and possibly some in Connecticut. Time erased the stories from people's memories and erased the rocky imprints from the view until about 100 years later, in 1939, the land was given to the Rhode Island Historical Society, and 2 years later, they found, again, when they cleared the land for construction of a new railway line.
Interesting.
It's now preserved and a safe distance from the roads, but they say it's really difficult to find without a GPS, and I don't really know if I want to go find it.
Nope, don't blame you. There's an island area out by the
Canada.
The Canada it's called Keels.
Okay.
The story of the devil's footprints has long been an attraction for visitors on the community of Keels. Imprints in the rocks around you resemble a cloven, hoof-shaped footprint. These cavities continue to be a source of curiosity and bewilderment. Local stories claim the footprints' origins are supernatural and the tracks are impressions left where the devil danced. Okay. However, geological studies have shown the mystery of the devil's footprints as natural origins. They are cavities left where carbonate nodules called concretions have eroded out of the bedrock to form the cavities in the rocks. Concretions form early in the process that turns buried sediment into rock as mineral cement or carbonate is deposited in layers growing outward from a central point. It says, why did carbonate grow in concentric layers? There are many different ways to explain this geologic phenomenon. One suggests is the decaying remains of an ancient organism once exposed to the elements. The concretions weathered out, leaving the empty nodules which we see today.
Okay, cool. So at least that one can be explained away.
Those don't look like...
Doesn't look like a footprint to me. It looks like...
That looks like a hat. So yeah, there's like different pictures of it throughout. And then there is an interesting post on Reddit as one of the responses to this. Somebody said it could be the meteorological effect similar to the snow roller phenomenon, which is where snowballs form and they roll down hills and whatnot. And somebody who is actually from that area commented, said, I've seen horseshoe-shaped prints in the snow in the south of England. I suspect it's to do with the melting pattern of snow in certain conditions that causes rabbits or deer prints to take on this shape. In addition to the devil's prints, there were lots of rabbit prints around. Interesting, they are so often reported from southern England. Worth noting, significant snowfall is relatively rare in this part of the world, so people aren't necessarily going to be super familiar with how animal prints look in the snow.
And that I can say that does happen because we have a lot of wildlife by my house, and when they leave,
I've even told you in the wintertime, I'm like, you got some weird footprints in the snow. I don't want to go to my car right now.
And I can tell, I can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that one's from the deer or that one's from the rabbit.
And somebody commented what you said earlier. No one in 1855 traveled the whole path. This is a report of people finding random, much shorter tracks and later assuming they were one unified path.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically like playing phone tag.
Yeah.
Of, oh, I saw this up here, and oh, I saw this. And it goes back to what I said of the path could be sporadic, but with snow drifts, and if it was a particularly bad, quick winter, everything's going to shift.
Yep. And we even had one winter where we had a path that went from our back door around the house and then out, and it didn't match anybody's footprints. It was way too big, and everybody was freaking out trying to figure out who was messing around with the house. Then I watched the boys one day, and I'm like, no, it's where this one walked through with their shoe, then it started to melt, then it froze, we got more snow. So you have two overlapping footprints that would get smaller and bigger and smaller and bigger. And then eventually, as it started to freeze and thaw, it looked like it was like a size 14 shoe, even though nobody wore that. But that's just the way it was. And
somebody said here that the prints were more horseshoe-shaped than hoof-shaped based on the drawing in the first link. I'm familiar with horse hoof prints in snow, and even when wearing shoes, the animal shoes, you'd still see
You mean he didn't have Converse on?
You'd still see the impression of the hoof, frog, and sole in the snow, not just a single U shape. When it snowed several inches here last, the horse I had at the time left deep circles in the snow where he walked. He was a pretty big dude, but not like a gigantic or anything. So it could be like just because people back then, they usually took the same route or route. The same route everywhere, so it could have just been an overlap of hoof prints from goats or even horses. Because, and especially if they walk back and forth, it's gonna get bigger and it's gonna start looking more deformed. It's a horse or a sheep's or
it's
a goat.
A horse, of course.
It looks like there's just a lot of people going back and forth. That in England, they don't get a lot of snow, so for that to happen, it had to have been a really harsh winter, and it had to have been some kind of animal that they were just not used to seeing the prints of in that area. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool story.
Yeah,
because it's like one of those.
I just want to know why they all automatically just went, it's Satan. What are you people doing?
Exactly. It's 1855. We know Salem witch trials. We know all of that stuff. Why? You're supposed to be religious people, and automatically your first thought is, oh, it's the devil. If the devil is coming to visit your entire town, that's a problem.
Right?
You did something wrong.
I don't think he's just going to come for a stroll and just go walking through.
You messed up. And at that point, you should see who's still in the town. You should see if anyone has gone missing. That's what you should have done. You should have went into the houses and be like, all right, who's still here?
Ernest, you're still here? Okay, you're good.
And where was the religious aspect of all of this? Where was the church? I didn't see no mention of the church.
No.
Where were the religious nut jobs? Didn't see no references of those. So obviously, if you're thinking the devil, you messed up somewhere. You did it. You're going to hell.
Obviously not, because he just strolled through and kept going.
But nobody checked to see who was missing.
Let's go back to the census from back then.
That's too much work. You want to see who's missing. Yeah. Check for the babies.
Ooh. Yeah.
And the kids.
Yeah.
He's got candy. We're going. Yep. Yeah. I said it. I would take the lollipop from the devil any day.
Just bring me books and coffee and I'm good. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a fun little tidbit.
Yeah.
I saw that earlier and I was like, of course, it's the devil.
The devil made me do it.
So now every time Prince in the snow now, I'd be like, oh, look, the devil's here. And they circle your house a lot.
Yeah, they do. No one's come up missing yet, though.
Not yet.
I'm not saying nobody's been swapped, but no, they're not missing.
All right, guys. I think we're done.
Okay.